Welcome to Inner West Library and History. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Gadigal and Wangal people of the Eora Nation, and to pay our deepest respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today's presentation is part of our digital series Women in Gaming, exploring and celebrating the various roles of local women in game development, be it coding and programming, game writing, composing music for games, or graphics and game art. We hope you enjoy learning about these incredible women and are inspired to consider a career in this ever expanding and fascinating realm. Enjoy!
Hi, my name is Yunyu. I'm a film and games composer and sound designer, and I happen to tell stories with sound, in short. A series of accidents. So I was actually in Perth doing my Bachelor of Commerce, and then on a very, very bored day, I wrote this song, so this is all very comical. I wrote a song which I then brought to a producer then who, we worked on the track for a while, and I remember a week into this creation, there was a Triple J Unearthed competition. So I thought, I don't know what Triple J is because I'm initially from Singapore, so I didn't know what Triple J was. I just knew it was a big radio station. And so I submitted a track, turned out to be You're Expendable, and so that track won that year's Triple J Unearthed competition, and then that just sort of jump-started my life into music. I play a variety of instruments, so I've got obviously keyboards, then I play taiko, I play a 21-string harp thing called a guzheng, which is basically a harp. It works like a harp anyway. What else do I play? I play the guqin, which is a 7-string Chinese instrument. And I play the hulusi, which is a gourd flute. That's pretty much about it, I think. And whatever other I'm also a singer, so yes. I wouldn't say proficient. So that's the thing. We just learn enough to get a decent recording out of things. I mean, in the studio where I usually work by myself, it's usually just me and my countless of takes. So enough to just get decent bouts of recording and all that sort of stuff. So I think a lot of and I find that quite similar with a lot of other composers as well. They pick up a variety of instruments, sometimes for sound effects. So like my 21-string harp, as beautiful as it sounds, has yet to be played as it should. It has acted as my sound of horror sound chamber most of the time. So yeah, that's what composers do. We find a thing, it makes a beautiful sound or a very strange sound that tells a story, and we do what we will with it. And if professional playing is needed, we usually get the correct players. That list changes all the time. There is Joe Hisaishi, there is Peng Xiwen, there is recently I've been listening to a lot of Nina Rota again. So yeah, it's all the old classics at the moment because we kind of listen to what our projects ask us to listen to. And those are my current favorites. I'm sure it will change in the next millisecond. The story tells me what to do, really. I think every story, depending whether it's a game or a film, they kind of have their own soundtrack already when I first see it, whether it's the general pace of the story or just certain things that a certain rhythm in the story tells you. That already sort of tells you what to compose. So really, I'm kind of ruled by the story. including my own. Well, in some ways, you're still serving the story, but the lens is different. So in film, the lens is always sort of happening through the director. Half the time, I feel like I'm doing this psychotherapy thing with my director, because I will ask the director, oh, why is the character feeling like that? Why do you think the character wants to do what they do? What shall I tell the audience? What shall I not tell the audience? Because really, you're hiding things or you're showing things for the director when you're doing the film stuff. But the lens is always with the director. But when you're in games, it's still a little bit that. You still have that chat with the game developer, but the lens is with the player now. So you got to preempt, is the player going to be here for a while? Is the player going to be lost? Is the player going to simply, what happens when the player presses pause? So you got to think not so much from the perspective of the director anymore, but from the perspective of the player. Ooh, okay. So the first process when the client brings a story in is to sort of decide where we are in the story. Are we sort of at the beginning, the story is just brewing, which is my favorite, or are we at the end where it's a situation of I finished, now I've just thought of sound, which is less preferred. At the beginning, that's always, if you're sort of at the beginning of the story, that's always really, really fun, because you get to put a lot of other unexpected things in there as well, contribute to the story, because you are, and this is something I think people can think about when they bring a sound or music person in, is that we are storytellers as well. So we happen to tell stories with sound. And the world is made up of sound. Even right now in silence, we have a lot of things going on at the back that tell us we're in a library. So it's that sort of stuff. You kind of like to sit in the beginning of the story to help the crafter craft it. So it gives you a sense of place. And then, the other advantage is when you bring the story to me early, I'm there at the end to remind you what the story was when you brought it to me. Because usually the director goes through a real alchemy of emotions as well when they're making something. And at the end of it, they might have forgotten what the story was, what the story was supposed to be. And I'm sort of the reminder person to just go, well, initially you did say it was this. You still want that? So yeah, it's kind of our job. Well, we all work with what they call a DAW, so it's a digital audio workstation. So my weapon of choice is Logic, but really in the industry there's Pro Tools, there's CUBASE, Nuendo, that sort of stuff. It's quite a wide range. Doesn't matter which, you just know your weapons. I also have, it's not so much equipment, I think. Oh, and also in games, I use Fmod a lot. So that's the tool in which to make adaptive music. And then the rest is knowing your way around Unreal and Unity as well. So there's that. But as for what we use, I think the main thing is knowing, well, my main favorite thing is making samples. So I have a huge library of all sorts of sounds. I also happen to live in a very natural bird cacophony area, which can be very good if you're collecting sounds. It can be very bad if you're doing vocal recording, depending on the time of the day. So that's me. I spend a lot of time recording birds, nature, all that sort of stuff that I think can be used. Birds get a lot of that because, yeah, as I said, they gather a lot in my balcony. So that's that. It's a natural aviary. What else? I also collect, I have a recorder with me most times, so I do go around just collecting very strange sounds. And that's the stuff that when we get into the studio, that's what gets used a lot to make beats, to make music instruments, and soundscapes and all that we've never really seen before or heard before, depending on what stories the directors or game developers are trying to tell. So first things first, we find out it's always the story first. So we find out what the story is. I have this process where I sort of decide we have a chat about what the rules of the world are, because that will tell me what sort of sounds to collect, what sort of instruments to use, maybe things. So the first two questions I always ask are, what are the rules? What is the time? What is the space? So what is the culture of this place as well? Are we making something up? Are we? So one of the games I was working on, which is Princesses versus Dragons. So that was interesting because that was a multi-culture, cross-geography battle scene. So it was like dragons versus princess as per the title. But it was princesses from Persia, from India, from China, from medieval England, versus dragons from those respective places as well. So that I had a bit of fun with that because it was about mixing sort of different influences together, because they had a Welsh princess as well. I remember, so it was mixing like really improbable mixes of music between, say, even Welsh and Bollywood at some point. So that's really, so these are the fun things that you can have once you ascertain what culture this world is. And in this instance, it's multi-culture, multi-world folklore sort of universe. So that's what happens when we write music, because the initial part of a lot of these processes is collecting the sounds of that world. What is the logic of this place? Where are we at? What time? So in this instance, it's like, you know, you're looking at old time, multiverse, medieval / Ottoman Empire / old China battles. So that's what you get. So that's one instance. Okay, so there's a few I'm quite proud of. So there's an augmented reality collaboration, which is between a Sydney real-time film company called Mod and University of Western Sydney, that I was very, very lucky to be a part of. And it was me creating, getting to create music for this project called Data Farms. So the whole idea of data farms is what happens in the background of data centers, which, you know, when you're passing information, when they get hijacked, what happens to the information and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of data flying all throughout the place. But with a lot of data-driven installations that we've seen, they're actually often not very musical, because it's just data that's been assigned a random note, and here we are, here's a mess of notes. So my challenge that was given to me at that time, should I choose to accept it, was to create this piece that had its own logic, that was somehow, no matter what happened, still told the story and showed the data and was still musical. So I think we did that, and I was pretty proud of it. another project, so that's my own, because I come from Singapore and I've been sort of working on this. So it started because I've been working on this musical with David Elphick, who is incidentally the producer of Rabbit Proof Fence. And so he started unearthing a lot of old-time, ghost legends for me, because we were talking about this musical that involved a lot of old Singapore, Southeast Asian legends, which got me thinking, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of other, nice horror / psychological stuff in that world that I came from that hasn't really yet been explored. So yeah, so I was building this, I am building this walking simulator with my good friend Queenie Chan, and making this, and it's a little bit of I will only say so much at the moment. It's a horror walking simulator that sort of visits what the old kampong days were, with some old legends thrown in. Because I see the world through sound, and I think people aren't often, and I really like manipulating the people's worldview through sound, because I think we have our defenses up when we look at things that are visual, but we often forget how influential sound can be and how it can change worldviews and change story worlds as well. And that's why I do what I do, because you can sort of watch real time how people react to sound without them knowing they're reacting, which is fun. It's like being a puppet master. Oh, yes. So Hubs was me. So Mozilla Hubs is, it's a place created by the folks from Mozilla, and they have this space where you can just, actually people just go there and have meetings and all that sort of stuff. So when I was there, I realized that you could actually, do a whole lot of music experiments with that space. So in one of the Hub's spaces, I basically wanted to do a tribute to a favorite Hong Kong film that I watched growing up, which is a Chinese ghost story. So in this place, I wanted to, because it's an immersive place, I wanted to see how well music and sound would play a part in that sort of space. And Hubs was just a really good place to prototype all this stuff. So I came up with the whole theme was, in this little place in Hubs, there is a day spot and a night spot. So in the daytime, you come to this world, and it's a nice little lake that has some sort of chanting in the distance, and it's all quite ominous, but possibly quite harmless looking as well. And then nighttime, when you visit this spot, this very same spot has no more lake. There is a haunted place in the middle of that, and so then it turns out that chanting that you hear in the distance in the daytime is a vampire being kept, behaving when it's daytime, and it's now on the loose. So so we wanted to create. So Queenie was practicing at that time how to do a lot of 3D graphics. And I was wanting to know more about, how the possibilities of immersive music in that sort of environment as well. So there we were. I was putting music tracks in that world, and Queenie was doing her art there. So one of the experiments we had was, go check out the monks, because I've got the links, where we've got these monks singing this sort of weird prayer choir. And they're all saying something a little bit different if you walk up close. So I've been pretty lucky. A lot of work, a lot of projects that I've been involved in have actually had a lot of women in them. There are many women who play like sort of different roles in sort of the games, the work that I've done. And then I've also enjoyed working with Queenie, who I think we've equally both, sort of took on more, because that one's a really small project with the story that I was writing myself with Queenie. So we both took on more roles. So we found ourselves taking on the role as games developer, storyteller, script writer, as well as and then Queenie doing the graphics and me doing the sound and music. So yeah, I think you'll find women in a couple of sort of variety of different roles in gaming. It's not that. Yes, it is still very popular with males, but yeah, there are. You'll find that if you move around a bit, there are a fair few women who are also doing a variety of roles, not just and they're all pretty high level stuff. Okay, that's all for now, and I hope you've enjoyed meeting me, and maybe I'll see you around in a workshop sometime, or in a games development conference sometime in the future.